Well, welcome to this very special presentation, and thank you so much for joining me. The presentation is how to enjoy an effortless golf swing, and I want to add the word enjoy into the title because let's face it, we all take up this game generally for a hobby to begin with, something we actually want to enjoy. And actually, when you really get it, when you understand you're dealing with your own amazing mind and body, it should be something to enjoy. Learning to use these things, the body, the mind, in a way that's effective is fun. It's enjoyable to do. But I think sometimes we really miss that and we get so far away from that. I know I have personally. My background really is as a young golfer. I took up the game around about 12 and a half, 13 years of age. I was super dedicated once I got into it. In fact, I didn't even go on a golf course for 6 months. My dad's approach was go and learn to hit the ball on the golf range. And that's what I did. Every time he played on Saturday, I would spend 3-4 hours just hitting golf balls. Then I'd go to the short game. So actually, by the time I went out on the golf course, I actually could hit the golf ball fairly well. So I grew up in a very dedicated manner to try and swing the golf club the absolute best I could. And of course, it had its advantages. It certainly had its advantages from becoming a golf coach, but it also got in my way a lot from the point of view of trying to become the best player I could be. I had an approach which really wasn't that effective. I became a perfectionist, thinking about every single position of the golf swing I believed I needed to hit to be able to get that right. And guess what? Throughout the years, those positions, those kind of ideas of what constitutes a perfect swing or what I should or shouldn't do, they keep changing. What this presentation about is some key principles that allow you to enjoy an effortless golf swing, because we're only going to deal with principles of how your mind and body work. And they have not changed. They are the same today as they has always been. I just want to check something here, making sure my mic is on. That they have been the same that they have always been. They have stood the test of time. It is really tapping in to your amazing power. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your ability. It doesn't matter what restrictions or limitations you have. The point is you want to be able to enjoy the golf game. You want to enjoy the golf swing. You want it to feel as effortless as it possibly can for you as an individual. So this presentation is not about trying to give you some idealistic, perfect golf swing. It's about helping you find your ideal golf swing. It's about helping you explore to be able to swing the golf club in a way that is fun and enjoyable for you, and one that you can keep working on, because we all know, even when we understand principles, we never truly master them. We have moments of mastering it, but we never truly master them. But what's important is, and I hope this will come across, is that what I want you to do is to get these principles so you know what to come back to. So you don't go off searching, looking for the next latest fad, the next latest idea that ends you up on this windy road to nowhere. Whereas actually we want to build solid foundations. Just the same as we're building a house, we want those foundations to be good so we can build something strong above that. If those foundations are not right, we're forever patching, repairing, doing all these different things to try and get it right. And sometimes it is right. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes it works, but then invariably it starts to collapse and break down again. When it does, if you've gone down that route of quick fixing, if you've gone down that route of the latest fads, the latest ideas, you will be trying to quick fix it based on the next thing. And that means you're getting further and further away from the true principles of how your mind and body work. And that is what this presentation is about, to bring you in line with those principles so that you understand them and apply them and hopefully build the foundations that you deserve. So, as we go through this presentation, we're going to look at what creates effort in the golf swing. Then we can look at what is an effortless golf swing. Is there actually an optimal golf swing? Are there some principles that you can follow that allow you to get your optimal swing? Of course, there is. This we're going to go through. What tends to get in the way? What blocks that success? What gets in our way that stops us being able to do that? We're going to look at that as well. And then I promise that one of the things I'm going to share at the end for you is an exercise that I've used with every standard golfer, from the best players in the world to complete beginners. And it is a true magical exercise, I like to call it, that really embraces how your mind and body works to its optimum, to be able to help you make the changes that you want to make. Because you've got to be able to break habits. You might be stuck in habits the way you're going about trying to improve your golf swing, and they may not be as effective as you want. So you've got to learn to break those habits. I'm going to show you an exercise that I think is one of the most powerful I've ever come across to be able to do that. Something I've done for many, many years with players. And quite frankly, every time we use it, it seems to work. And I always wonder to myself, why am I not using that more often with golfers? So I'm going to share that with you as something very special at the end of this presentation today. So let's get into it. So first of all, when we're hitting golf balls and we're swinging, why does it suddenly feel effort? Why is it that as we're swinging, muscularly it feels like effort, mentally it feels like a lot of effort, we get anxious, we get strained mentally and physically? What is it that causes that? Well, really it's a lot of overthinking, isn't it? We're standing over the golf ball trying to hit it, and we are reminding ourselves of what to do. We're trying to remember everything. We're thinking, now, I've got to get in that setup. Oh, and at the start, I've got to do this with my hands, that with my wrist, that with my shoulder, that with my knee. And we're reminding ourselves of all these things we think we need to do, as if we're going to forget. And I've asked golfers this actual question: what do you think is going to happen then if you don't keep reminding yourself of this checklist? And they say, I think I'll forget them. Because that's actually not really true. But of course, the other thing is, our brain doesn't work in a way that we're only swinging the golf club for a second or so from the time we start to the time with the ball. We don't have time to process all that information, not to be able to get it through to ourselves. That's really important to understand. So standing there trying to tell ourselves all these things is going against the nature of how our mind and body work, and therefore that will create effort and tension. The other thing that creates effort is when we're often trying to move our swing in a way that's either not natural, i.e. just not natural at all for the human body, or it's against what our individual body wants to do. So for example, you may be in a situation where you've had a sedate lifestyle, you've been at an office desk, you've been driving a car for many, many years, and you've not really done much stretching, mobility work to get your body to move. That means your spinal rotation, I did a simple thing here, your spinal rotation may be here as opposed to there. But you've been told in the golf swing, I've got to get a 90-degree shoulder turn, okay? And that means your understanding is you've got to get to here. But you're not even aware consciously that actually where you're at the moment, this is your spinal rotation. That's what you have. And so effort in the golf swing creeps in when we're trying to force ourselves to get round to something our own individual body doesn't want to do. Could your body do that? Absolutely. It's potentially it could if we give it the right movement practice to allow it to do that. And I'm going to cover a little bit of that in this presentation, give you some ideas of some of the things you can do. But what I would rather you do, and this starts to bring us into what is an effortless golf swing. An effortless golf swing is really the reverse, isn't it? When we're thinking less, possibly not even thinking at all about the swing. Maybe we've got to the point we can actually just think about the shot we want to hit, not actually the swing. That can happen. That's a possibility. But an effortless golf swing is one when we're not really thinking about what to do. Okay, we're much more natural. And here is the key thing I want you to remember. You and the club become one. That's really what we're after, isn't it? Because think about that. If I had no golf club in my hand and I was to just start to really feel my whole body moving in the swing, I think for most of us, we'd start, oh, it actually feels quite nice. That's fun. That's enjoyable to swing in that way. So why is it when this thing appears that all of a sudden we're like, oh, tension creeps in and we start to do all these different things in the swing? So that's like the club has now become this alien object that we're trying to control and move around, and our bodies start to do this really weird stuff and start to move in different ways when we're holding it. So really, an effortless golf swing is one where the club and you really truly begin to feel like one, that you feel like it's moving together. It's just a part of you. It's not a separate part of you, not something outside of you. And one of the expressions, one of my coaches that used to work for me used to have an expression, he called it hand golf. And it was the idea that actually if we put a ball on a big tee here, like in front of you here, and said, actually with your hand, could you move and hit that? Well, I think pretty much all of us would hit that successfully. We would actually we wouldn't just do this, we'd probably actually start to move our body and use the whole thing. And because our hand is part of us, our wrist is part of us, our elbow, we feel confident. We don't even think about it. We start to relax and we start to use our whole body as one. So if we'd never miss with our own body, just using our own body only, why is it changes so radically when we put this in our hands? So is it possible that an effortless goal swing is one where we can start to feel like the club and our body become one? I hope so, because that's one of the objectives I'd like you to try and experience, or to experience and to aim for to some extent. That's something we'll keep working towards. And that's a good indicator for you when you're practicing and playing. How much does it feel like it's part of me, or does it really feel like it's something separate? So to me, that would be an effortless goal swing of what we're trying to achieve, okay? So we know what it's like when there's a lot of effort. We end up with this mental tension, physical tension, anxiety. We know what it's like when it's effortless, when our body's flowing much more, it's much more natural, and we're not really thinking about it, and the club and us begin to feel like one. So of course the question is, how do I get to this stage where it can be a lot less effort, where it can be effortless? Well, there are certain principles that allow that to happen. And it's when we go against those, we violate those, that's when it begins to feel like it's effort. So there's certain principles that we're going to go through. You could often say this is when you get into a flow state. So I'm actually going to ask you, by the way, to do a couple of exercises with me. So if you haven't, if it's possible for you to get a pen and just a piece of paper, just do that for me. Have a pen and piece of paper next to you. If you have a golf club available, have that with you, but it's not critical. But I'd like to actually get you to go through something with me with a piece of pen and a paper, if that's possible. So I'll give you a minute to do that while I keep talking for a moment. So what we want to do is we want to get you into a flow state. Now, one of the key things for getting you into the flow state is being able to allow your body to move subconsciously, i.e. without thought, okay? Now, think about all the things you do in your life that allow that to happen. You know, you walk. Most of us are able to walk. We can turn. We can bend over. We can pick things up. We might catch a ball. We might throw a ball. We might write our name. We might use a knife and fork. We might do all of these things, drive a car, all of these things without thinking. They're complex movements. They are things that we are coordinating, different bodily movements, focus, all these things are coordinated for us to achieve something quite successful, whatever it is. You think about a ball. If a ball was thrown at me, I would focus on it. I'd see that ball coming, and a lot goes on. I would move my body weight to a certain place to be able to be in a place to catch it. I would extend my arm. I'd open my wrist and open my fingers, and I would watch, and I would just close my hand generally at exactly the right time to hold that ball. You think about how complex that is. That's all happening without us thinking about it. What's certainly not happening, I'm pretty sure, is you're not going, right, the ball is now 12 feet away from me. I need to now position 60% of my weight on my right leg. I need to slightly extend my right knee. I need to extend my wrist, open my fingers to 45 degrees and go. I don't think we're doing that, are we? I don't think we're actually going through that to that degree at all. It's happening very naturally. So why is it we end up doing all those things in the golf swing? Well, really, it's just because there's that amount of information out there. There's that amount of information and ideas out there. That's not to say any of it is not useful. It's all useful at some level. What you've got to decide is, where are you at, and what is it you're trying to achieve with your golf? What is success for you in golf? What does it mean to you? You know, are you being fair and kind to yourself the way you approach it, or are you being completely unrealistic? Are you hitting shots? You know, you're going ahead and hitting the ball, and after that shot, it doesn't go quite near the flag, and you're beating yourself up about it because you've hit it better in the past. Okay? Are you being unfair, unkind on yourself? You need to be clear. Why is it you play? What's important to you about playing the game? Okay? So we want to get to this place where, again, as I said, there's lots of good information out there, but you need to know what's right for you. And you need to feel that and stop and slow down sometimes and not just go to the next thing. Okay, because that's what you've always done. Stop and slow down and think about it and think, what's right for me? Does this resonate with me? When something resonates with you, my advice, stick with it. Work through that and really be patient with that approach, whatever that is that works for you. So if this resonates for you, the idea of trying to play a bit more subconsciously to get that effortless goal swing, embrace these ideas, have a go for it. So hopefully you've got a pen and paper. What I'd like you to do, I would like you to, we don't get to do this a lot now, do we, because of computers, but I'd like you to sign your name as you may have signed a letter off, something like that, or a check, whenever you used to write checks many, many years ago. Just sign your signature there, okay? On that piece of paper and have a look at it. Now, what I'd like you to do now you've signed that piece of paper, next to it, below it, above it, whatever, have a look at the first one and see now with this. I want you to do it again, but I want you to do it really slowly, and I want you to try and replicate every twist and turn of that signature. In other words, try and create an exact replica, not a little bit like it, but an exact replica. Take your time, have a go at that for me. Have a quick go and see how you get on. Okay, what's it like? Did you notice it's really cranky when you do that? It's awkward, it's clunky, it feels funny when you do it, and they don't look anything like each other. That's my experience when I've done it, and I've done this multiple times in seminars across Europe. And it's always the same experience. When somebody does it the way I instruct it, they realize that the second time they're in their own way. They get very awkward about it. And it just feels actually a bit like our goal swing can feel when we're overthinking, when we're trying too hard. It just doesn't have that nice natural flow to it, okay? Whereas the first one, you've just learned it and now you allow it to happen. And that brings up a very important point, by the way, is that whatever approach you take to help you become a better golfer, at some point, you have to actually transition to allowing it to be natural. You have to transition to not thinking. You have to at least find out what would that be like. Because sometimes you actually can be doing something really, really well in the golf swing. You may have made a change. But go back to one of the earlier things I said, you're still trying to remember it. You're reminding yourself to do it. That's not natural. You don't remind yourself in all those other examples we said, tying your laces if you do that in shoes. You don't remind yourself of how to cross the laces over and create the bow. You now just do it. Okay, so we have to allow ourselves for that to happen. Okay, so that example of the signatures gives you an idea of the difference when you're in a flow state to when you're in an overthinking and over-analytical state. Okay, so that's the type of thing that we're going to try and achieve. That happens. The principle there is that you're in that subconscious mode. You're letting it happen much more naturally. You, the club, the pen in that situation start to become one thing. Now, we're going to get into now, I'm going to start to actually talk about what are some of these principles and how do I apply them into a golf swing. One of the key things I'm going to mention is a term called external focus. Now, external focus in the golfing sense is when I'm thinking about something outside of me, which is really different if you think about some of the examples I've said before. So very often, most of us might be standing there and going, right, okay, remember to straighten that right knee out or hold that right knee. Remember to bend the left knee. Remember to set the wrist. Remember to turn the shoulder. If you notice, that's all about me. It's all about the body. Okay, that's an internal focus. That's internal. It's me. An external focus would be something outside of me. It could be the club, could be something on the ground, could be a target, could be anything else external. Why is this important? Well, there's been huge research by many people, but Dr. Gabriel Wolf's probably the most famous for it. Lots and lots of research to demonstrate that actually when we focus on something externally, we begin to operate much more unconsciously. And the results are better in just about every scenario. In other words, they're better in practice, they're better in friendly games, they're better in competition. So when we can learn to have that external focus, the proof is there. And this is not just in golf, by the way, this is in just about every sport you can think of. The research has been done to show that the results, the performance increases. It gets better with an external focus. Now that's really important. Now, why is that difficult to do? If the results are much better, why would you not do that more often? Well, first of all, you may not know about that. So hopefully, again, that's part of why you've tuned in to listen to this. But part of why people struggle with it, in my experience of having taught this for many years, is that it goes back to the earlier point. We think we need to remind ourselves of what to do. And you may have heard of the different stages of learning. There's four, but really the three that are probably quickly to go through. There's consciously incompetent. That means I'm thinking about what to do. I'm conscious, but I don't do it very well. So I say, right, okay, Scott, you've got to turn your shoulders and, but I'm still not very good at it. I top the ball when I do that, okay? Then I go through the second stage where I'm consciously competent. Means I'm thinking about it, but I begin to naturally now get a bit more competent. So it's right, okay, Scott, turn those shoulders, and it gets a little bit better. And then the third stage is where I become unconsciously competent. Now I'm not thinking about it. I can just go up, I can look at the target and go ahead and swing, and I'm not even thinking about it. So they're kind of three basic stages of learning that we go through. And obviously we want to get to that. So one of the reasons people struggle, and we sometimes, like I said, we need to push ourselves, if you like, to actually find out, can I get to that third stage? Or am I going to keep getting stuck at this stage where I'm thinking about it, and sometimes I think about it and do it well, and sometimes I think about it and I don't do it very well. Okay? So the external focus, in my experience, one of the reasons golfers struggle with that is because what they're actually doing is they might hit a bad shot. This is probably a classic scenario. This is something you may want to think about. You may have decided, you may have tried before, go, you know what, I'm going to stop thinking about this. This is just too much. I'm going to play more naturally. And it works for a little while. And then you hit a bad shot and you go ahead, you're not thinking about it, and you actually have a terrible shot, okay? And you go, oh, that's because I didn't remind myself of what to do. And then you get stuck back in this loop again of now you're thinking about it, every single position of the golf swing, trying to get them all right. And as a result of that, you've slipped back into this very conscious state. And a lot of internal focus rather than the external focus, okay? So can you see why it could be a challenge to have this external focus, because we don't trust ourselves sometimes? So part of my encouragement in this presentation, you've got to experiment with trusting yourself. You've got to allow yourself to let go and get out of your own way. And that's a great expression, isn't it? You've got to get out of your own way. When we're thinking internally, we are in our own way. Imagine doing that, walking along. If I said to you, okay, when you walk, I want you to think about every stage, how the heel comes down, how the foot pronates, how your ankle flexes, how your knee extends, all these different things. You probably at best, you just about stand up, but really be very, very awkward, okay? So we need to get out of our own way at some point. Does that mean you shouldn't be working on your technique at all? No, not at all. But you need this balance. You need a good plan where you're going to be working on your technique in the right way, on sound fundamentals, and also allowing yourself to be able to get into a flow state to be able to play more effectively. So, external focus, get into a state where you can move much more subconsciously and you're out of your own way. The club and you begin to feel like one. So how are you going to do that? So this is what I'm going to share with you now, an approach that I created many, many years ago. I wrote about it in my book, Intuitive Golf. And we're going to go through that and explain to you why this covers so much of the right stuff for you. And it's what I refer to as the circle swing. The circle swing embraces all these principles of making sure you use your mind correctly and your body correctly. You see, most of us are probably familiar with the term the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind really is there for focusing, for putting attention onto something. Well, we can be aware. There's different research that says how much we can be aware of at any one time consciously. But really, we can only be really super effective when we're conscious of just one thing. You know, and you'd have all had examples of this where you might be doing something on your phone and somebody's talking to you and you either start to hear them and lose what you're doing on the phone, or you're so engrossed with your phone, you don't really hear them. So in other words, to be conscious of more than one thing at one time, yes, you have a sense of it, but you're not really engrossed. So we really want to get our conscious mind focused on one thing. That's going to help us to perform at the best. The subconscious mind, however, can deal with multiple things. That's all the bits we've spoken about already. What it's doing when we're catching the ball. In other words, it controls the bodily movements to allow that to happen. My conscious mind is on the ball coming. The subconscious is organizing my body to do what it needs to do. Okay, so that's really important to remember. In the circle swing I'm going to go through with you, it embraces that principle, but it does more than that. If you think about the optimal golf swing, when I hit a golf ball, okay, that golf ball is going to go based on the information that club supplies when it hits that ball. So when that club comes in and hits the ball, that club effectively is holding information. That information is the result of the angle that club comes down at. It's the result of the line that club comes into the ball at. It's a result of the club face orientation when it hits the ball, the speed, etc. This club holds a lot of information when it hits the ball. That ball only knows the information it's given, and it will do what that club tells it to do. So the club is the only thing that's going to hit the ball, hopefully. The club's the only thing that's hit the ball. It has information. The ball's going to go based on that. So therefore, it makes sense that if I can get the club to do what I want it to do and supply the right information to the ball, I'm going to hit some good shots. Now, depending on the shot I want to hit, if I want to hit a draw shot for a right-handed player this way, a fade shot, a higher one, a lower one, the information needs to change. What this club is doing needs to change in order to hit that ball differently, okay? But all the time, the club is really the golden thread, if you like, that's supplying the information. So what the circle swing does, the circle swing concept gets you to be more aware of what the club is doing. And we start with a very neutral, simple approach of the circle. So when I set up to the golf ball here, I think you can just about see me quite nicely there. When I set up to the golf ball here, the golf ball being the thing I want to hit, that sits at the bottom of the circle, okay? Now, depending on the shot I'm hitting, just for those of you who might be shouting at the screen, saying, what about the bottom of the arc? Well, we know that sometimes, depending on the shot when you hit, the bottom of the arc may be slightly forward of that ball. But for simple terms now, that ball is at the bottom of the circle. The good news is the club also starts at the bottom of the circle. So they're already there, they're already in position. The next thing we have is that actually the golf club, depending on the one I'm using, already has the appropriate angle. Providing I don't manipulate it one way or the other too much, if I allow that club to sit fairly flat, it has its natural angle, its natural plane. Therefore, the simplest golf swing in the world is one where that golf club actually just turns on a circle upside down and returns itself upside down back to that ball. That would be the simplest golf swing. It's in the appropriate plane now because that's how the club's designed. The ball's on the bottom of the circle. The club's on the bottom of the circle. What I'm going to do is let that club turn upside down and return itself back there. I'm going to hit the ball every time. It's a simple, simple golf swing. So now you might say, all I'm doing is lacking a bit of speed in order to get it to go the distance I want it to go. But that's how simple it can be. Now, if you think about that, that swing then has the minimal amount of compensations. An effortless golf swing is one that has the minimal amount of compensations. The more I send the club away from that original angle, maybe here or here, I've now got to do something at some point to get it back to there. Okay? That means I'm going to compensate. That creates more effort mentally, even if we're not aware of it, and sometimes physically as well. That makes sense, okay? So we've broken it. Let's look at the circle from another perspective. When I set up to the ball, and I'm assuming, by the way, that you're in a pretty good posture, pretty good grip, but we'll come back to that in a moment. When I set up to the ball, there's a natural distance between the ball and the center of my body. And I like to use the center of the body, the sternum, as roughly the center of the circle because the ball's on the perimeter. I'm pretty much in the center here. That club tracks that perimeter going up and down, okay? Now, so there's a natural distance here. If I keep that distance pretty much between me and the club similar, okay? Now, obviously, I start to use my wrist, so the shape changes, but the distance, if I track that distance, it would be similar, okay? If I do that, then again, I have simplified the golf swing. You might say that club head tracks the perimeter going up, coming down, and going through, okay? So when I set up the ball here, if you can visualize on me a big circle starting at the ball and the club head, going around my body here at the angle we just discussed, the plane, back down and through here. That would be a nice, simple circle, okay? If I can keep the club head pretty much tracking that up and down on that angle, again, it's a simple golf swing. There's no compensations going on. Now, compare that to if I took it inside of that circle. You see how that's much narrower than where the perimeter should be. It's in here. If I overextend it, that's gone outside here, okay? If I, from this angle here, those things might look like this. I've gone off the circle here, off the circle there. All of those things now require some form of compensation to get me back. So this is where we can start to get into the external focus. I just asked you to visualize on me this circle being projected from the ball and the club head around my body. Here, there's some great images of that in my book, Intuitive Golf, okay, to get that sense of that. Now, if in my mind I forget about my body, forget about trying to control my body, and allow my conscious mind to focus only on moving this club head on that external circle, that imaginary external circle, okay? So we've established that it has an angle. We've established it has a size, okay? If I now just keep my club head focused on that external circle and let the club head track that and don't try and do anything with my body, my wrists, my hands, my arms, my shoulders, my hips, nothing. Just let them respond to that. Then what would happen is I would now be, my body's movement would be happening subconsciously because my conscious mind is here. My conscious mind is no longer saying, do this with your shoulders, this with your knee. It's given up all of that control. Great saying. If you want to gain control, you need to give up control. Okay. My conscious mind is now just moving that club head on that circle, going up, coming down, and going through. Okay. The movement of my body is being, if you like, controlled by my subconscious mind. Therefore, it's very natural. I'm not thinking about it. It's going to feel flowing. It's going to feel nice and enjoyable. So now I've got this external focus, club head, outer circle. My body is moving subconsciously. I'm beginning to employ the principles that will allow you or lead you to enjoying an effortless golf swing. Okay, really, really key. Okay, so now the challenge is for you as an individual, I'm going to ask you to start to think about, where does my swing not match that circle? In other words, have I actually been trying too hard to get a one-piece takeaway? And actually, I'm past that circle over here. I've overextended. That happens quite frequently with some of the clients I see. Have I actually pulled the club in here much too much, so it's too narrow? Okay. Am I doing something with my wrist and rolling my wrist so it goes under the circle's angle here? Okay. Am I going above the circle angle here? Now, the other just what do you notice about your own swing? Now, you may be saying, yeah, but Scott, I know that, for example, I know that actually I bring the club in here. It's too small. It's too inside the circle here. But that's why I'm trying to turn my shoulder more. Okay, possibly. But what I would say to you is relax trying to do this. Just focus on the change in the size of the circle. If you believe your circle's too small here, just actually project in your mind first this bigger circle and let your club head find that. Almost again, imagine the club head and the club has its own energy. Imagine it has its own energy. That energy is created by your conscious mind. You send your conscious attention there to move that club. Let it move on that perimeter. Now, go back to remember a point I said earlier, which I'm going to come back to again in a moment, is that for you to swing that club in that circle, of course it's going to require you to move your body in a certain way. Let's say to bring this shoulder and arm round more, the thing you're trying to do. But here's the difference. It will bring the shoulder and arm into the swing as much as is safe for your body to do it. So often I see golfers getting injured because they're trying to make movements in the swing that their own body really doesn't want to do. But that's because they're consciously forcing themselves to do it beyond what the subconscious wants to do. I don't think you'd ever get an injury if you allowed yourself to move subconsciously, if you didn't force something. I doubt that would happen, or at least you'd reduce the chances of that a lot. So can you see again how there's a huge difference here between creating this nice mental picture of the circle projected from the ball and the club head around me in terms of its size, get a sense of it. It's generally much bigger than we realize, okay? But also its angle, which is created by whatever club I'm holding, that's already predetermined for me, all right? Now, I want to say something else in this, which is really, really important. When I move that club head on that circle around me here, actually the amount my body does is pretty small. Now I'm going to touch upon it a bit later on about some of the components of the body and what's really important about that. There's only really a few things the body needs to do in terms of mechanics, okay? But you want to prime your body to be able to do those things so that your body's best able to respond, okay? Again, particularly if you've had a sedentary lifestyle and you've not been working on mobility and stretching as an example. But what I want to make the point again is that when this club head may make a big circle, but actually look at my inner circle, as I call it, the body here, I make a nice big circle here. But look, if I take my arms away, I've not done a lot with my body. You know, I sometimes say the full swing is only about 12 inches because for a driver, because really my shoulder goes from here to there. That might be 12 inches as an idea. So it's not a big swing. Now compare that to our concept of trying to enjoy an effortless goal swing versus an effort. If you realized how small the movement is with the body, just for a moment, just get the idea of you've got this outer circle of the club head is big, but the inner circle of the body is very small. If you've got a sense of how small that was for a moment, do you think actually then you'd realize, maybe I don't need to put quite so much effort in. I wouldn't have to try so hard. I wouldn't strain quite as much to do it. Can you see how, again, why principles are really important, ideas are really important to grasp based around those principles to help get you to a new place? And I'm going to re-say it again and go back to the original thing. I want to add the word enjoyable to the title of how to enjoy an effortless goal swing. I think we've lost track with that. I know I have sometimes. You know, it's like actually should be enjoyable, like using your own body and your mind's fun. It really is. And you do need a realistic expectation of yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. Please be kind to yourself. Give yourself a break. You're not, probably most of you listening to this are not playing for your living, okay? Even if you are, you know, I've got some great stories of European tour players I've worked with where I have worked and helped them about their expectations on themselves and being more realistic with themselves. And they invariably go and play better immediately because they give themselves a break, okay? So coming back to this circle concept, the inner circle of the body actually isn't doing a lot in terms of the space it covers. Obviously, what it does is really important. And you know, we can talk about that on another occasion, the mechanics of that. But in terms of the amount it does, it's not that big. Therefore, doesn't require a huge amount of physical effort to do it. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. So really, again, what I'm going to encourage you to do, number one, see if you can fathom out where does my club, don't worry about your body, where does my club currently go relative to that circle? Does it go away from its original angle? Does it go too wide? Does it go too small? You could, have a look at it from that way. By all means, observe. You might go, well, actually, now thinking about it, Scott, I really do know that my body goes way more than it needs to go, one part of it, okay? It really overworks. And actually, that brings us to a really important concept again. In the goal swing, either, again, an effortless goal swing is one where every part of the body is doing what it needs to do as much. You know, they all contribute. So the wrists, the arms, the shoulders, the spine, the hips, the knees, everything is contributing, okay? And that would have the least compensations on it. When something is either overworking or underworking in the goal swing, then we have to, the body's always trying to rebalance itself, okay? So if you've had an idea, for example, that, you know, you want to turn a lot more, you may find by turning a lot more that your wrists have suddenly started to do less. You're not even aware of it, but they are doing less. So now that overworking has caused an underworking here. And that's going to change a little bit of what it's going to create compensations for you as you go through. So one of the things, the nice things about the circle concept, by you actually just concentrating on one thing, how do I get this club a bit more on this circle, on that perimeter, going up, going down and going through, you can allow your subconscious to organize your body, meaning it will get each part of the body to do just the right amount. Okay, again, based on your own individual condition of your body, should we say. So to wrap this part up, and then I'm going to start to talk about what gets in the way, what actually stops you from being able to achieve this. Okay, we've touched upon it a little bit. We're going to go into that a bit more. So just, if you could start to hit balls, get this mental image around you of this circle, put all your attention on that club head, okay? And just allow your body, your mind, your conscious mind to think about that club head, swinging on that circle and nothing else. You'd start to feel, you'd move much more subconsciously, it'd feel effortless. I think you'd find a lot more enjoyable. Okay, so let's have a look at why does that not work? What gets in our way? Let me just see how we're doing on time here. I want to make sure. Okay, right. What gets in the way? Well, I've talked about we're focusing consciously on the club head. We're allowing the subconscious to move our body. I've talked about the fact all of us have probably different conditions for our body depending on what we do. So therefore, the ability, when we leave it to the subconscious, your body may do slightly different things to mine. It may be able to do more or less than what mine or somebody else can do, okay? Without doubt, there is a value of practicing movements of the body to get it to do certain mechanics that are required. Simple one is rotation, obviously, in the goal swing. We do want rotation in the goal swing through the spine, okay? Rotation through the spine is probably the main area. When we rotate, we have a weight shift. Weight shifts from right foot to left foot, depending on whether you're a right or left-handed player, okay? So for me, as a right-handed player, as I swing back here, and I let that club head track on the circle, I have a rotation. It shifts my weight slightly over to my right foot, okay? That's in the goal swing. I'm a big believer, and this is a great thing is you can do this stuff at home. I'm a great believer that actually there are certain movements we don't even practice outside of the goal swing anymore. You know, when we're kids, we're practicing without even realizing because we're tumbling, we're rolling, we're skipping, we're jumping, we're doing all these different things. So we're practicing this movements, if you like. But as we get older, we tend to not be doing that sort of stuff as much. So actually, sometimes you want to check off, can my body actually do certain things? Because if I can't do it outside of the goal swing, what chance have I got it to doing it in 1 second while I'm swinging at 90, 100 miles an hour, whatever it may be? So here's a nice little practice you can do. So as a right-handed player, my backswing obviously is going to go this way. I'm going to ask you to place your left hand on your chest here, and I'll demonstrate first of all, and then you can have a go in a moment. And again, you can look at this later. And you're just going to slide your arm across your chest, almost as if you're peeling it across your chest and off your chest, in a straight line. Bit like the circle swing, the club head's going to lead, i.e. the fingers are going to lead, the wrist is going to follow, the elbow is going to follow, the chest and the shoulder are going to come along and be pulled along. Now, can you see as I do this here, what it does is it creates then a rotation through my spine, and my weight has shifted over to my right foot here, okay? So in other words, for a very natural movement, just letting my hand lead, the response, I'm not trying to do anything in my body, it's all subconscious, is I get a rotation, my weight goes here. Now, if you did this and you videoed yourself, okay, or you looked in the mirror, find out what do you do when you do it, because you may find it's different. It's taken me a while to practice that, to get that kind of movement. I'll give you an example. I was working with somebody this week. They thought they were doing it, when they looked on the video, they're doing this, like this. So their body wants to avoid their right foot for whatever reason. There's a whole multitude of reasons why that may happen. That's beyond what we can cover in this presentation. But our body will give us clues. You know, sometimes we could be saying, oh, I'm doing this wrong in the swing. I don't get onto my right foot. But actually, have you even found out, can I get on my right foot by doing something far simpler than that? Because if you can't, you're never going to do it under the stress of the goal swing. So there's little checklists that we want to be able to have. I'll give you one more in a moment. Little checklists we want. So again, practicing it here, sliding, does it look nice and smooth? Now, what I did with this gentleman I was referring to, he was getting to here and starting to go this way. I asked him to start to monitor it. And when he gets to the point where it's going to go, relax, breathe into it, soften everything, and then see if you can just work through that slowly. And he's now beginning to be able to get the weight to transfer. Far better to learn that away from the goal swing and then let the body get used to that. And then guess what? It will start to happen in the goal swing. One of the most important things I have learned in the last 5-6 years or so of teaching and working with body experts around the world is that when we make a small change in the body, like I'm saying here, in other words, we give the body a new experience of actually, in my example, going onto the right foot, rotating. When we give the body a new experience, it will assimilate itself into your system and begin to, as long as it's safe, in other words, there's no pain there. You know, you're not avoiding this right foot because there's pain down there. If there is, you need to see someone about that. But providing it's just a learned habit, in other words, now you've got a new habit, you're moving properly, your body would assimilate that, put it into your system and make it available. So the next time you go and swing, it becomes more available to you, particularly when you let your subconscious do it based on this concept of swinging that club on the circle. So we're looking at things that can stop your body achieving. It can be just a physical thing. So we need to check off certain things. Here's one more you can do actually. So one of the things in the goal swing, I've made the comment that different things move different amounts, okay? And in some ways we could say at different times. The reality is everything's kind of involved at the same time, but it appears to be at different times. So here's a really nice movement to practice as well. You're going to stand feet hip width apart, straight ahead. And what you're going to do is you're going to work on 3 areas: the center of your pelvis, your sternum, and effectively your nose, your head. And what you're going to do is you're going to see if you can move them independently. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn your hips around here, keeping your chest and your nose forward. Then you're going to leave your nose forward and turn your chest round. And then you're going to move your head round. Then can you do it reverse? Can you bring your head back? Can you bring your chest back and your hips back? Okay, so show you from this angle here. It's a fun exercise because most of it's like it's rubbing your tummy and patting your head. You're kind of getting a bit of a mess to begin with. So it's belt buckle round, chest round, head back, chest back, hips back, belt buckle back. And then you go the other way as well. Now, again, what you're doing is you're taking control, management of your body. You're getting your body to experience some level of control. You're moving it, you're getting different responses, you're segregating it in ways that we need to get different movements through the goal swing. So again, if you're standing there and as you go to move your hips, kind of everything goes round, again, that just shows that your body hasn't learned to segregate itself and to be able to move in different ways. So just practicing that is going to have an effect in the goal swing. It's going to help you. So there's another reason why we can get blockages. Another thing that can affect us in actually creating this nice, simple, effortless goal swing is we don't set up to the golf ball very well. We may not hold the club very well. We may hold it in a way that just the mechanics of how we've put our hands on the club means it sends that golf club off of that circle immediately. It could be our posture. Our posture could be really bad on our heels, could be really bad on our toes too much. We could have our pelvis tucked under here, so our spine is bent. That all of those things, for example, if I was here, my spine bent, I'm not going to get the rotation, and therefore almost inevitably the circle will be smaller because it's only really when I'm in a good posture that rotation happens, that the circle gets bigger. So it can be things in your setup. So they, what we'd call the golfing basics, are really important to be able to address. So let me give you one key area to look for here, because when you actually move in that circle well, one of the biggest things it does is helps balance, but you need to be balanced to start with. So one of the reasons I love being barefooted a lot of the times, I like to feel that connection with the ground. The feet are such a critical part of our anatomy. They're complex, by the way. And if we don't have our body weight, our balance correct on them, it affects every joint in the rest of the body. So that's why I just love doing it. So I encourage you at home, practice being barefooted. Now, what I'm going to share with you here is the idea that I think of the foot as a tripod. So if I was to kind of imagine here, to make sure we've got some light on me, this is my big toe, my little toe, center of my heel. Those 3 points, okay, form a tripod there. When you stand here, you should be aware of just underneath the big toe, the little toe, and the center of the heel. Those 3 points, do you feel pretty equal pressure on both feet on those 3 points? Or do you feel like you're on your heels a bit? Do you feel like you're on the outside of your feet, the inside, the front? Where are you? Try and find that equal pressure. Not just in a standing position, but that's the place to start. Again, take my idea, do things outside of the golf swing first before inside. Then when you go into your golfing posture, do you still feel on that tripod? Because if you don't, you're not going to get the true anatomy of how your feet work, which is going to affect every joint above. So you could be criticizing your swing and saying, well, I don't use my knees properly, or I don't get my hip rotation properly. But actually, if you're not on your feet properly, you're not balancing that way, you probably haven't got much chance of doing it. So you're not being very fair on yourself. So a nice simple starting place, as we're checking off this list of things that can get in your way and stop you getting that nice, simple, effortless golf swing, is, am I on that tripod when I set up to the golf ball? That's a really key part to check off as well at the beginning there. Okay, so yeah, we've talked about other things that get in our way, the overthinking, trying to remember too much, working on ideas that are not necessarily that great for the golf swing. They're not true, natural things. I tend to avoid golf swing references as much as I can. It's more about the mind and the body. If we get those things right, your golf swing will appear. You know, that your golf swing will appear. That's what we want. It's like, you might be focused on that circle. You'll get the best version of it you can for you if you allow yourself to be effortless and to swing subconsciously. Okay. So be careful, my advice, on too many golf swing positions. Okay. I think that can cause us some problems. Okay. You really need to know your own game and build it properly from there. Okay, so let's just have a recap now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you this magic exercise, which I think is so crucial. To get an effortless golf swing, we want to think less. We want to become more natural. We want to follow principles like external focuses. We want to allow our subconscious to move our body, just as we did when we did the writing exercise, the signature exercise, catching a ball, those type of things, okay? The circle concept swing gives you all those things. It gives you an external focus. It gives you that mental picture of that circle around. It allows the subconscious to move the body. We have a predetermined angle of the golf club, depending on the one we're using. We have a predetermined distance from the ball. So we have a size of circle. All we want that club to do to make the simplest golf swing possible, we want that club to stay on that circle and on that angle and on that circle and simply turn upside down and turn back again. All we're going to do is add speed to that. We have the simplest golf swings. We have the least compensations going on, therefore more chance of it being effortless. Okay, so that's really what we're after trying to achieve there. And then we looked at things that could block that. So there could be things in your own anatomy, your own biomechanics that could be affecting that. I've given you a couple of little references there to sort of play around with and just to check. You know, it might incentivize you to actually go, actually, I'm going to do some things with my own mechanics, my own body to be able to get that better. As I said, there's a lot you can do at home. Your setup, your posture, your grip, those type of things. Are you in a good place? Are you balanced on that tripod on your feet? Those are the things to check off, okay? So what I'd like to do, so I hope that's been of value to you. Again, if you've got any questions as I'm coming towards the close here, and you want to put them in the chat, go ahead and put them in. If there's time, I'll quickly have a look at them. Even if I don't get to them in this presentation, I will come back to you with them. I will look at them afterwards and come back to you. Couple of things I'd like to, as we come towards the end, couple of things I'd like to go through. First of all, I'd like to make you an offer. I've got something really special for you, a free offer for you, which may be of interest to you. If what you're hearing resonates with you, it sounds of interest, I'd like to do that. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you this exercise, which I think it really does create some magic sometimes in helping you break some habits in your swing and be able to create new ones. Okay, so I think that's really, really crucial. So first of all, let me actually just take you through what I call my success pathway. Okay, and really what this is about is, if it was of interest to you to work with me in an unlimited way, in a very new way. Okay, there's only so many people doing this at the moment, and it's a way that we work completely remotely. In order to do that, I need to do a swing evaluation for you. I need to evaluate your swing and give you a bit of an assessment. My offer to you is I'm going to give that to you free of charge. Now, you can go to my website. You'll see I charge £160 for just one assessment. For the virtual one, the one where I do it remotely, we still speak, I charge £100 for it. So it's a genuine free offer. If you'd be interested in a swing evaluation to be assessed by me personally, I would like to offer you that free of charge. In that assessment, I will explain to you more about my success pathway, helping you understand a pathway to take you from where you are to where you want to get to, building on the right foundations, making sure you're doing the right things with your body, like we talked about today, with your mind to help you get the results you want. And actually, the way it works is you get unlimited access. In other words, you get unlimited amount of lessons throughout the month to be able to achieve that outcome. I'll explain that more if you decide to go for the assessment. But all I can say to you, the results are quite profound. Even to the point I said recently that some of the results that are happening for people working with me in this way that I don't even get to meet in a one-to-one way, actually sometimes getting better results than people that are coming one-to-one. And there's a couple of really, really important reasons for that from the coaching side and from the pupil side. And again, I'll explain that. Well, a quick insight is that I'm refining all the time what I'm doing as a coach, and therefore I'm getting right to the point much quicker, I think, with the people I'm working that way with. And also for the pupil, for the student, they're taking better responsibility of their learning experience. And we all know that when we take responsibility for something, we tend to do better with it. So there's a quick snapshot of why the results are quite incredible. So if that sounds of interest to you, if you would love to be able to get that free swing evaluation and free assessment with me personally, then just simply put yes in the chat bar and I'll follow up with you, or send me an email, scott@scottcranfield.com. At the end of this, I'll try and put a slide up so you can have that information as well. Okay, so there you go. There's a special offer for you if you think that could be of interest to you to work in that way. Now, promised you a special exercise that I have worked with some of the best players in the world with, as well as actually beginners. To demonstrate this exercise, before I go into theory, let's do something practical together. What I'm going to ask you to do is this. I'm going to ask you, as long as you've got space to it, stand up, and I will demonstrate first of all. So let me demonstrate, then have a go. I'm going to ask you to stand up, simply put your hand out, maybe just point your finger out, and just turn comfortably behind you and notice where your finger ends up pointing wherever you are in a room, or if you're outside, wherever it points at. Just get a reference. Notice where it ends up when you go round. Okay? Where do you get to? So do that for me first of all. Just find out, put your hand up here, and just turn around and notice where it points and remember that point. Okay? Great. Now you've done that, come back. What I want you to do is to let your arms beside you. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to imagine only, don't do anything with your body, just imagine lifting your arm up, pointing your finger in front of you. Now imagine your finger going around in the same direction it just went, going past all the points it went past, and going past the point where it got to, and keep going and going and going quite a long way further past. Imagine where it gets to. Okay, just in your mind only. You're not going to do it, you're just imagining where it's going to go to. Once you have felt in your body that your body has gone to that point, so feel it in your body as well. Once you visualize it going to that point, open your eyes, lift your hand up, and go round just comfortably and see where you get to. Okay, go ahead. Did you notice how much further you went? Okay. Now, again, in my experience doing this with hundreds, probably thousands of people in different seminars, everybody, when they follow those instructions, goes further. Why? Because what's happening is we're using our mind and our body. What we're doing is we're alerting our body to something we want it to do. We're alerting it to a habit we want to do. And what it does is it primes the body. It actually sends blood to those muscles it's going to use. It actually starts to create the connections in the brain to those muscles through the spinal cord out to those muscles to get them ready to do it. A lot of research says that actually we get 80% of the muscle activity in our muscles just by imagining it without even doing it. There's even research on conditioning of the body like you would do if you go to the gym, that you can get conditioning of the body without even lifting a weight. Okay? Sounds quite appealing, I know. So this is the power of using your mind and body, which really are genius. That's the magic inside of you. Take that into a goal swing. If you are trying to work on something in your goal swing and you're just doing it physically, the way we described at the beginning, you're reminding, got to do this, got to turn here, got to do that. You're doing it only at a conscious physical level. You're not truly integrating your mind and body fully to be able to get the best result. In other words, you're missing out on some of the genius that's already inside you. Okay, one of my favorite sayings in coaching: there's no such thing as advanced. is only knowing the basics in more detail. The basics is knowing how to use the genius of your mind and your body. Okay? The advanced is you. You are the advanced. You just need to know what basics to follow. So this example here, rather than just forcing something consciously about, let's just stick to the same example for a moment. I know it's a bit off piece from where we've been tonight, but it's relevant to the drill we just did, the exercise. You're thinking, right, I need to turn better, and you're forcing yourself to do it, and you're not experiencing it and feeling it in your body first, you're never going to get the maximum result. And you're always going to feel like you have to remind yourself to do it because you've not experienced it. You've not integrated it in your body. Another thing I love to say to my clients is you've got to feel it, not think it. The goal swing, again, go back to it. We want it to enjoy an effortless goal swing. To enjoy it, you need to feel it. You need to feel that move. You need to feel that enjoyment in your swing. So now what I'm encouraging you to do, the way this exercise works, you're going to feel it before you even do it. So what you might do is you might set up to the golf ball. Okay, you might set up, and let's just stick to that example of a better rotation through your spine. You might set up and don't swing. Just imagine what would it feel like if my body rotated through the spine better. What would that feel like if I did that? And you feel it in your mind there. And then what happens is when you felt it, when you go, yeah, I can feel that going through my nerves, then you simply open your eyes and you just swing. You don't try and do anything because you've primed the body to do it. So you're feeling it, nice rotation, open your eyes and go ahead and swing. And don't try and do it. In the same way when you did this exercise, you didn't suddenly try and go round. You just let the body respond to what you'd primed it to do. So you can see that this exercise of linking mind and body is relative to anything, any habit that you would like to create in the golf swing. So whether you follow what I've given you tonight or whether you prefer other approaches and you'd rather go down that route, that's fine, but don't do it without using your mind and body properly, effectively. The gifts that you have been given, no matter what you think of it, I can assure you is pretty magnificent, okay? So use that regardless of what approach you're going to use to better your golfing technique. So, thank you very much for being with me for this presentation. I hope you have found that useful. I'm going to put a slide up, so I'm going to try and find a way of getting a slide up so that you can see the offer available to you. And also, actually, let me pause and see if I can see if there's any questions as well.